Hey girl,
Hey, how are you? I'm
I'm
just like
doing
all these things are
great.
popping up on my screen, so let me just like
Yeah.
X them out.
Are you doing good?
I am tired. I was just in Idaho for a holistic practitioner convention. So
Oh
I'm
my
just
goodness.
I'm just beat just a different routine, different food.
Yeah. Traveling is always, yeah, you're out of your
It
environment.
it was it was very surreal because you don't really know me, but 5.5 years ago, I was totally disabled, couldn't walk, couldn't stand. So some of these practitioners I've trained under, and we were asked to speak at the
Yeah.
conference on mold and SIRS. We were like a pre-recorded talk, not live on
Mhm.
stage. So I was so just emotional meeting these people
Yeah.
who were a big part of my healing. I spent a lot of time happy tears, right? Happy tears.
Right.
Just
Of course.
really
That's amazing to see
very,
from where you've been to now. What a gift.
very full circle, very humbling, very humbling.
Mm.
Um, So when I start to, I'll tell you when we're going to
Yep.
stream live to
Yep.
through Zoom. The reason I do it through Zoom is because when I've done it live on Facebook, it like was zooming in on my nose and
Yeah.
it was just sort of weird.
I
And I
like
didn't
it
know
too
it
on
was,
Zoom. Yeah, Zoom's good.
well, then I can send you the recording easily, right? And if
Okay.
you want to do something with it, YouTube it, chop it up, you
Yeah,
can.
what else? Yeah.
But when I go live, it'll look like we're not live, but we are. So I'll just sort of chat until I
Hmm.
confirm that
Yeah.
we're live, and then I'll
Yep.
introduce myself and introduce you, and I'll just ask questions. And if you have, I'll
Yep.
say to you if you have things you want to add, like it'll just
Yep.
be a
Yeah.
fun,
I
a
love
fun
that.
conversation.
I feel like that's the best way to get that good organic, off the cusp kind of conversation flowing and, helping so many families because it's a struggle out there, and they don't know what to say to their realtor. They're afraid to ask questions. And this way we can, just let them know, don't be afraid. And I can definitely give them some pointers.
Well, and you're the first holistic realtor that I've interviewed, and I don't know. I'd rather do interviews than go
Yeah,
live myself because I sort of feel like people have to be tired hearing
yeah,
from me. I know that may be a wrong way to think, but
yeah.
wanting to give them value around,
Right.
the health space that I'm in. And I think
Mhm.
this is a fun way, at least for me, to break it up,
I
you
think it's a
know.
great way. Because you have such a good diverse. Like when I watch them, I'm like, wow, that was educational. It was something different, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, you do a
but
great
I don't
job.
know. I don't know like the result of any of it, right? This is just what sort of what God has laid on my heart
Mm. Yeah,
to do.
yeah,
And I think the cross collaboration is sort of the best way.
yeah,
Like people may come now to your feed from my feed and vice
yeah.
versa,
Right.
to be able to have a further reach and be able to help people. And the people who are supposed to be
Yeah,
attracted to whoever
yeah.
will be attracted to who they're supposed to for their
That's
help. But I
right.
wish I had a holistic realtor when I moved
Yeah.
to Arizona. The realtor I used, she saw something I posted, she reached out for health help. So I'm sort of curious.
Oh,
I haven't
good.
seen her in like 8 years.
Well, Arizona, Brian Johnson's building the Element, the healthy homes. You might need to get him on there and talk about the Element. Why is he building this wellness community? I can connect you. He's a triple certified building biologist and a builder.
He's been on the mold professional thing, right?
He
Yeah,
has.
in the group, yeah.
And we're actually hopping on. When I get off with you, I have another Zoom with him at 1 o'clock because he's part of the Healthy Building Alliance.
Right, right.
But he's building a healthy home community in Arizona in your backyard. So why not talk about
Yeah.
what fast wall, why is it and ask him, why is this like a mold, not I want to say mold proof, but it's the way he says it is, he's building for mold clients and he's using fast wall. So it's basically, like I don't want to say non-mold because there's, I mean, that happens
No,
everywhere,
there's
but
no such thing. Right, right,
yeah, he's got good verbiage on it though, like why he uses fast that the product he's using.
right. No,
Yeah,
that's a good idea. I'll definitely reach out to him. I'm gonna uh I'm gonna start. Are you okay if we start the
do it.
And I'll try, I'll keep us, is an hour okay? We can be
Yeah,
under an hour, but is
yeah,
that all right?
that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure I take a look at Q&A. I just have to fill this out. Okay, I'm pressing go live. It's not doing anything on my end yet. There we go. Hey guys, this is Heather. It says we're preparing to go live. I want to wait a minute till I'm verified that we are actually live. Okay, it looks like we're actually live. So, welcome everybody. I'm excited to be here today with Tori McGee. She's a holistic realtor, a building biologist, and I thought she would have a lot of value for all of you. I'm just learning about holistic realtors. I wish I had had one in the beginning of my journey because I did move into a home that had building material mold in the desert. So I think this is going to be a really valuable conversation. Thank you so much, Tori, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been wanting to be on here and talk with everybody and just kind of, bring some knowledge and understanding about what it is about healthy homes, wellness real estate, and all of that, because there's so many questions and concerns behind it. And I'd love to just open up the chat and talk about it.
Yeah, I love that. Can you share just a little bit, sort of why you got into the space of being a holistic realtor? Like what,
Yeah.
and then maybe what does that mean to be a holistic realtor?
Yeah. So back, I want to say it was before 2015, before I got my real estate license. We were consumers ourselves looking, to buy a home. And I just had questions out there about, moisture, air quality, HVAC. It wasn't necessarily like the power lines and 5G that we have today, because back then those were non-existent, but there were still power lines and stuff like that you had to be concerned with. Well, I would ask questions and no one really had any answers for me. So, bright idea to say, hey, why don't I get my real estate license to help my family? And just so I can, kind of navigate this. Because I had really lived a holistic lifestyle and very non-toxic. And so I just, wanted that for my family. And so as I got my license and helped us, as soon as I got my license, everybody started reaching out to me, my friends and just people in the community said, "Oh, well, Tori, will you help us?" And I'm like, "Sure." So it just kind of took off 11 years ago and it's just been nonstop. Well, when I was doing this at the beginning, it was only what I knew as more of, the crunchy mom and the health, and I didn't know like a lot in the beginning. I just knew what I was trying to accomplish by putting vendors in place, contractors, people that understand, the healthy and building science. And back then, I want to say there wasn't a lot, you know, it was hard. It was hard to track down all of that. So I decided to really get educated and I wanted the gold standard and I wanted not to just be a regular agent. I wanted to be a building biologist. I wanted to get certified in building biology. And it just took me down a beautiful, a beautiful trail. I will tell you, I opened up my eyes to wellness homes, the problems with homes, and it really brought me close to vendors and contractors to help me. You're only so good as you are people you have on your team. And so putting that team in place of professionals that can help your clients that's the gold standard. That's where it's at. So here I am 11 years later helping families with, my team in place.
You were ahead of your time, like just thinking about those things. I love it. So can you tell our listeners what is a holistic realtor? What does that mean? How is it different, than a regular realtor?
Yeah. So I guess it means different. And I did create a holistic real estate network because it's different for everybody. For me, it is the building biology standard. And, I would say, who you hire, ask questions to. Do they have a certification? Or, are they calling themselves a holistic realtor? And what experience do they have? I mean, that to me says a lot too. If they're going to put the time into it, do you want to consult with somebody that you just want to make sure they have the certifications and that have, their team in place? That would be a good question to start with is, what kind of certification and what kind of experience do you have? Anybody can consult. We see the med spas all over, their wellness, and you just want to really make sure you're asking the right questions for what team they have in place. But for me, it is, within holistic real estate is having conversations with families. What are their needs? What are their struggles? Is it the past mold? And is it, environmental, or is it chemical sensitivity? And understanding, where we're going to have to be careful with the VOCs, and we might have to be careful with new builds, and just understanding and having that conversation. And buyers, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Ask the realtor, what kind of experience have they had in the past, and who is on their team? What kind of inspectors do they recommend? And that's really important questions.
I'm just thinking, like, for myself, who knew nothing about, right, what a holistic realtor was, and I moved into a new build in the desert. I didn't have any of those questions for somebody who's never even thought about, like, what questions to ask. Can you maybe give us, I don't know, four
Yeah.
top questions to ask your realtor or holistic realtor?
Absolutely. The first, conversation I would have is how long are you in business? Like, are you a new agent? How many years have you been doing this? And are you a full-time or part-time? You'll be surprised on how many actually work a full-time job, and real estate's a side hustle for them. So find out, what that is. Those are just generic questions you should ask any agent. But find out, what is their certification? What qualifies them to be a holistic realtor? Find out what is your experience, in this. Have you been a real estate agent for 6 years and you're just now switching and moving to healthy homes? Because I've been seeing a lot pop up since 2020, since I became in building biology, and I love it. But I also want to make sure that you're not just seeking out because someone's got a name on there, but they have the experience and, the reputation behind them. So those are also important. And then, you can always ask, are there any families out there that you feel like I could reach out to find out, what their experience was? It doesn't hurt to have a referral, or, maybe a review, ask
Right.
about that. And I would say, what is their, what is, when you're talking to a realtor that's more holistic, what does it look like when you work with them? What kind of people are they going to bring on? And what are their recommendation for testing? Like, are you going to do maybe an ERMI? What kind of mold companies are going to come in? Is it an IEP? What does that look like? Because you need to know also the price. You want to know how much all these inspections are going to cost, and what the expectations are. That's what I would say. Because starting out, like you say, can be overwhelming.
So what I'm hearing, because this, like I said, this is fun because this is all new for me.
Yeah.
If somebody's looking at a home, it sounds like you're coordinating a team of people to
Mhm.
support them to assess that the home, isn't going to negatively impact their health. Would that be?
Yeah, and I have a couple because not everybody. So I have you want a group. You want that realtor to say who are your recommendations that you have felt that might have worked great with your past clients that have chemical, any of those sensitivities. I have a couple of great mold that will travel IEPs that only do like the healthy home assessments, and they will dive in deep to the HVAC systems. They'll analyze your humidity levels. They'll look for water intrusion. They'll test with moisture meters. What does that look like? And then so the buyer can also research and investigate and maybe even reach out and have a conversation with that inspector or that company and, do your own research is what I say. Just find out who they're using and does that fit what you're looking for?
So you're not you're when if somebody's looking at a house, you don't always know if it's a safe house for them, then correct? You're using these other expertise people to come in and assess the
They will
environment.
do it when we're under inspection. So what I like to do is when I go out with my client, let's say me and you are going to go out, we're going to look at homes together. I do carry a little humidity and air quality little monitor with me. I have a flashlight with me. And when I go into the house, I'm going to, start looking around the baseboards. I'm going to start looking around the windows. I'm going to look up for stains. I'm going to look at the registers for maybe some rust, maybe some staining. You want to look underneath the sinks. You want to look around the home. You want to smell the home. You want to get a good feel of the home. And that will tell you a lot. Do you want to move forward with an offer? And then at that time, once you're under contract and you negotiated, then you set up for your inspections. And that's where the team of environmental inspection companies will come out, roofers, maybe a plumber, have them come out to look for maybe a sewer scope. Maybe it's a septic tank that needs to be pump inspected. There's so many moving parts, but it's so important to invest in this because you know how many calls I get a week that, I worked with somebody, maybe they're in a different state, they didn't do much testing, and now they did their bathroom floor and now it's, covered in mold.
Yeah, no, I've learned the hard way. I knew nothing about mold, right? Never tested any of my homes.
Hmm.
And I've had family members and friends buy homes and they'll say, "What do you recommend?" And I'll say, "You need to do some, testing." And I always start with mold testing. And with the way the market was, many people were just buying and had to buy as seen. And those people who did, they bought homes with water damage. And the cost financially on cleaning that up and cleaning up your health can be, astronomical. So better to have knowledge to be able to make a good decision. So when somebody works with you as a realtor, is it the same as working with another realtor in terms of like if you sell a house, that's where you get your commission, or is there an additional charge because you're a holistic realtor and you're
I get asked that all the time. I don't charge a premium or any other fees. I just take, what the commission is offered. So that's, but everybody's different. I've worked with agents that are not even, offering a specialty niche or anything, and they might charge $1,000 additional, premium as well. So, but for me, there's no additional, it's just like any other real estate transaction. You're just going to get the knowledge of me with my building biology certification and then my recommendations so I can share who these environmental companies are that I think would be a good fit. Because, also I had one the other day and one of my inspectors was out of state doing a major, renovation and it was, he was dealing with a water source and so he couldn't come out. So I had to pivot. That's why you want two or three so if there's any agents watching, make sure you don't just rely on one environmental. You want to really have two or three in your pocket so you can really service your clients the best.
you're tell me again where I know you're East Coast, but I always forget. Are you in Florida?
I'm in Georgia.
You're in Georgia. Okay.
Oh.
So are you allowed to be a realtor outside of Georgia or just Georgia?
No, I'm only licensed in Georgia. But, with the referral program, I started, George, my holistic real estate, well, I'm sorry, holistic real estate referral program. So I have like 100 agents around the country that if somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm, relocating to Colorado or I'm relocating to Ohio," I can say, "Hold on a second. Let me reach out to my network and see if there's an agent out there that has, maybe they're not, in building biology, but maybe they have some mold, experience. They've worked with somebody. They might have a few, vendors that they can get out because it's, it's not a one size fits all, in real estate. So I try to connect them up to the person that's the best fit for them.
It's really neat. Really, really neat. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
learned a lot. Um, so guys, whoever's watching, if you have some questions, I would say write them in the comments and I'll take a peek. While I'm doing that, Tori, do you have some things on your heart? I don't know that you wanted to share that we haven't touched on.
Yeah, let me just go and say try not to stress because I have some families that will um they'll look at only ERMIs, and ERMI is a great, it's a great tool, but it's not the whole picture. And I know a lot of families that I will talk to, and they're crying. They had to leave their home. They're bouncing from Airbnb to Airbnb. And the struggle is real, and it's really hard to watch the families go through this. So I would say try not to stress. You're going to get there, and just put that team in place that will help you, but let's let it not be fearful, because I feel like, it is scary when you're trying to do the best you can when you've got little kids, and it's hard. So that's one thing I would say, don't stress. And you can always reach out, you can always reach out to me. I'm only a phone call away, even if you're in a different state. I'm happy to, try to, help connect you with somebody, or maybe there's a practitioner, like yourself, or anybody that, I might have had a contact or a phone call with that I might can put them in touch with.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at, yeah, there's no questions yet, but when you said about the ERMI, I mean, the ERMI, if I can comment on that, right? The ERMI is testing for 36 different species of mold, um, PCR tests for mold. But when there's been water damage, if it's been cleaned up and they've cleaned up the mold, but they haven't
Yeah.
cleaned up properly the mycotoxins, that's what makes us sick. And there's other aspects to water damage other than just mold, like
Right.
actinos, like endotoxins. So I've seen people who've had okay ERMIs and they're in a home and they're sick, but the endotoxins and actinos are really high.
Yep.
And sometimes people don't spend that extra money to do that additional testing, but it can be worthwhile to do it if you're somebody who's chronically ill or you're really worried about your health,
Hmm.
and you don't know the history of the house, especially if it's not, even new builds aren't perfect. New builds seem to have, you know, I see lots of clients, even in Arizona. I've had several clients lately in new
Hmm.
builds with major mold and water damage. And I'm assuming the building material was moldy unless they
Yeah.
framed the house when it was raining. But it's a little more surprising in the desert, I think, but it's just as much of a problem.
Yeah.
But
And that's a good point that you just said for new construction. A lot of people will only go to new construction. So let's touch on some tips on that, because that's a huge one. I actually just wrote up in a contract with a builder. We did a special addendum that the builder would allow us a pre-drywall inspection with a third party mold inspection. And if we found any mold spores on the wood, that the builder would allow and pick our choice of sanding and proper remediation. Well, guess what? We came out, inspector came out, found I guess about 12 places that were very concerning on the wood. And I reported it to, met the builder out there, and the mold company met the builder out there and said, this is what we want to do, the proper protocol. We're going to sand this area. We're going to clean it. Remember, there was, no windows. It was all open at this time,
right,
it was
right,
prior. So they did it. So protect yourself, have the verbiage, because you don't want to be stuck in a contract. You can't get your earnest money back. You might not even have a realtor helping you, and you kind of feel like you're trapped. So, make sure that you protect yourself. And I think if more people start asking builders to put verbiage, water, mold, protections in there, it's only a good thing. It's only going to protect everybody, that we all feel comfortable moving forward with the transition, because the next step is the drywall and moving forward. Once you get the drywall up, you can't see what's under there.
I love that. That's a really, really, really good tip because I've heard some inspectors that I'm friendly with say they've had builders who know their building for clients with mold or SIRS or Lyme,
Hmm.
and they tell them to check the wood. And this inspector told me when they went out to personally inspect, there were tons of pieces of wood that were already moldy when they were building a new build for a sick family.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I didn't even know that's something you could do, put that in the contract.
And it's
Um,
harder because I have one right now that I was not able to negotiate that on. Like it was, but it was told that if there is an issue, the buyer can come and have a company. Of course, we can do our inspection. The builder just wasn't willing to, take you know, I guess any risk or whatever they want to do. So the buyer is, taking the risk because there was no other homes. And that's why I said every situation's different. Everybody is dealing with a different market, maybe a different, they have to have their child in the school system and they can only do a new construction. I would just say do the best you can and try to push for verbiage in there to do that pre-drywall and put some sort of mold or water, stipulation in there that the builder would, be responsible for that.
are there any statistics on how many, like the percentage of new builds that already have water damage because of either how they frame the house, like in the rain, or the building materials
I
already
would love if
moldy?
there is, I would love to see that because that would be that would be pretty pretty important. People drive by all the time though and you see the wood stacked up and it's just it's you're a buyer, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to, I would say, you want to hold people, accountable and say, look, this is my home. I want to make sure that I have the right to, I want to check out the wood, and some families will also go over before drywall and they want to write, little verses or something like that, or just, or anything like on the wood too. Some people, some families want to go over and just spend the day in the house before the drywall is up, so there's a lot to it when families are, building. It can be an exciting thing and it should be a very special time. So communication is very important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, those are really good tips. Like I said, I'm 61, no knowledge about any of this until,
Yeah.
you know,
And it is, and I started later in life in real estate. I got my license when I was 43, so I wasn't, super young and I was just, dealing with, a child that had, some ADHD and, I had finally, did a lot of research back in 2000 before there was, internet and chat GPT and stuff like that. So I knew that getting chemicals out of my home and cleaning and natural and diet and just having a healthy environment made a difference. So I knew that when I went to look for a home, I just needed to make sure that, and a lot of people, I want to touch on your air quality. A lot of people take advantage of air conditioning. We just assume because maybe an HVAC was serviced right before the home was put on the market. Don't assume that. Um, you want your own specialized HVAC company because a lot of, air companies will make sure it's tuned up, it's working properly, but you want a special environmental company come in, let's look at the coils, the plenums, are the plenums those the metal plenums is, what you want, but there's a lot of the duct board. So having conversations, and that's another one for new construction I forgot to mention. We were just, negotiating that in a contract last week, and I mentioned, the buyers would like to have metal plenums on that HVAC. So there's just little things that add up that you can do. Maybe that a drain for your washing machine instead of the little pan. There's just a lot of little things that you can, ask for, when you're going to be building a home and then when you're negotiating one important thing that I would say if you're in negotiations and it's a resale, have your realtor get concessions, maybe $5,000 towards closing. Don't let the seller do the repairs. You have control after closing who you choose. And to me, you know it's getting done the way to your standards. Don't expect the seller to do it.
Yeah, the right way. Um, HVAC, would you recommend that people who are in a home currently have their HVAC third party checked? And how often? I've never, other than my air conditioning company,
Yes, no.
right, coming
Yes,
up.
that's, oh my gosh, you're just opened up a little can of worms there. Absolutely. Every family, I believe, needs to have a company come out yearly to inspect your home. Look in those HVAC systems, look for possible leaks, condensation, how is the humidity flow? What's going on? Not just an air conditioning company. Look for local companies like here we have, Healthy Air. We've got a couple other companies that, work hand in hand with mold companies, but they only necessarily will do HVAC. And they can replace your air conditioning systems. They can do all of that. They can add a MERV 13, 14, 15.
We have we have one on ours, yeah.
Excellent. I've got a guy that's putting a MERV 16. It's something you have to do because with the HVAC, you have to make sure that, you're not, of course, hurting your system with that filtration system. So there's an additional, what they have to add. But get people out that understand, like you said, the MERV and understand all of this.
Well, it's a lot. We just had a fire in the desert 5 miles from our house, and it was a pretty big blaze. And I've never had a fire that I've experienced living in Arizona. But
Hmm.
literally, you'd walk outside and I couldn't breathe. And so
Hmm.
I called the company who installed our house is vented a
Hmm.
little bit because it was a new build and it was so tightly built that our IEP recommended bringing in outside hot Arizona air into the house to pressurize the house.
Yeah.
So we have the MERV, but I was asking, would it filter out the smoke from the fire because it was so smoky even 5 miles out. And they said as long as you have it on, but I was like, it was all new learning
Yeah.
stuff for me because I'm like, are we covered? Are we going to start smelling the smoke in the house?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, things you don't think of until something happens, and then you go down the rabbit hole of learning.
That's right. HVAC is very important during your home inspection. And that's one thing that I feel, working with, because I'm a listing agent on a lot of homes, and I usually only see people that come in with a general home inspector. I
Okay.
never see an additional team of people that come out. I try to have a roof inspector, sometimes a plumber, depending on, the home and certain things. I like plumbers to come out, check the pipes. You want your general inspector, but you also want that special environmental inspector because he's going to look at things that other inspectors are not going to look at. They're going to deep dive. They're going to look at, they're going to do not just air samples because you can, that's a misconception. They'll do an air sample in the middle of the room and hope that, it's picks everything up. So they have different equipment. The IEPs do, they can actually go around the room with a wand and check, what does all that look like, So I like Holistic Home Zone Kit. I'll follow him around and just watch what he does when he does his inspections. It's amazing what he tests for. So yeah.
Yeah, and can I just comment on the air, just so people know when people do an air test,
Hmm.
you're talking about like a mold spore trap air test in the middle of
Correct.
the room, and if mold's behind a wall, the air test isn't gonna pick that up, and that's sort of like a standard in the industry. When an inspector comes in, they do a mold spore air test. But I have had the air mycotoxin test done by Respir Air, which
Yeah.
is different. It's a mycotoxin test, and it's a 1 hour canister collection, and mold spores are heavy and tend to be on the ground, in
Yes.
dust, where mycotoxins were often, you're
Mhm.
breathing them in. And they have you sort of get the air moving in the room before you do the test. But I had building material mold, and we were able to figure out where with the respiratory air
Yeah.
mycotoxin air test. So there is a difference between like a mycotoxin air test, which they're relatively new compared to a mold spore trap air test.
And I think I love Respa Air that they're doing that. I don't know of anyone in Georgia that's offering that right now, but it would yeah,
It's a DIY test though. I mean,
that's
I
good.
found an inspector who did it in my parents' house for them because they're
Hmm.
older. But it is a DIY test that you can do it yourself. I took video footage of me doing
Yeah.
mine, and I must have done something, but it was black. Like you could hear my voice, but
Okay.
I actually have a training that Respir Air is going to be doing,
Oh,
that
great.
I'll be sending out an email soon and promoting on social media. So if people want to learn about mycotoxin air testing. Uh, it's going to be a great training, for
I
people
love that.
just to be
That
more educated.
I love it. I love everything that they do. I've been really looking into that. So I think that's really a unique way to do it. So that's amazing. And it is important, like you said, to have these different ways to look at it because there's not a one size fits all. Because if that was the case, then we would have
It would be
solved it.
easier.
Yeah, and also water. Try to get a whole house water filtration system if you can. I mean, we kind of skip through that a lot. So that's one thing a plumber can do during your home inspection, your due diligence time, locate the hot water heater, and you'll be surprised on how many people have never drained their hot water heater too.
That was me. Actually, I just had a water leak in our hot water heater because we've been in our house 8 years, never drained it. Knew
Yeah.
I should, but I was so sick. And then the healing was so intense, and the plumber came out, and we did talk about the whole house
Hmm.
water thing. And I wish I like had thought about those things before I moved here. And it's been such an expensive journey that I have to be thoughtful. But when I think about water,
Yeah.
even our drinking, I do reverse osmosis, and then I started distilling my own water. But it's
Yeah.
really hard to keep up with the amount of water that both my husband and I drink to distill enough. Um, and it's just the more I learn, right? It's like a deeper rabbit hole of choosing wisely
Yeah.
where you want to decrease your toxic bucket, but the water we drink and we sleep and shower
Yeah.
in, like I'm like, oh wow, that's the
Yeah.
air we breathe and our water, those are really big places that we need to be
Yeah.
mindful of
Well, another
toxins.
thing too is radon. I mean, I could talk to you, Heather, for a week. We could have a week-long series. I mean, seriously, there's so much to tap into, and I know we don't have a lot of time today, but maybe we'll come back and do, another series. We can collect some questions because there's a lot to do with healthy homes, and we're just only tapping in on a few things. But radon, you'll be surprised on how many homes that are on slabs, not crawl spaces, not basements are having 7 and 10 and 12 readings. I mean, and of course the EPA says be under 4, but you just, do your own discernment on that. But, at least have your realtor come out and do, or have a company come out and do a radon test before you buy, because you know how many times I do get money, I get a credit for my client to go ahead and put a radon system in because the levels are high. And I had one about a year ago, and the listing agent helped them buy the house a few years before, and they didn't do a radon test. It was in a basement, and it was like a 12. And she's like, we never did one. They've been living in a house. And so, I mean, there's just a lot to it. So please just request it. It's a couple $100 and it's worth it. It's worth knowing what your number is.
Right, and having peace of mind. Well, I want to say anybody watching the replay, watching live, if you have certain topics that you'd like Tori to come back around healthy home, to go in more depth or things we haven't touched on, because right, there's so many. I'm just in my own head, like, toxins that we use for cleaning, toxins in the air, toxins in the water. You mentioned radon. There's
There's
even
also,
lighting,
yeah, there's lighting, but
EMF.
EMF VOCs, thinking about carpeting, talk about like just that allergen alone. for families. I'm working with one that, severe allergies and just removing the carpeting, but make sure you do it properly. You don't want to stir it up and then it's all over the place. And I know that one company will do like a non-toxic glue, so when they do remove it and roll it up, it doesn't, disperse. And trying to spend that extra money and removing carpeting. That's a huge, toxic load on families.
We removed our carpeting out here, and it made me realize just how gross. I mean, if you change carpeting, and
Yeah,
you realize like all the pee, all the whatever, your
yeah,
dogs, your pets, it was like, oh my gosh. And I always thought carpet was so nice to walk on. It was a big adjustment to learn my whole house is tile or,
mhm,
hard. And out here in Arizona, it's on cement. It's
right.
not like in Pennsylvania, I was on wood, so there was more give for your
Mhm.
body when you were walking. So it was an adjustment for me.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, but I feel so much better now. I see how much dust and dirt, just in the course of a few days, and it was just all embedded,
yeah.
in that carpet. So I'm a big fan of, yeah, removing the carpet.
Yeah. And so there's, different ones and be careful when you shampoo your carpet or that's the big thing a lot of sellers will do. They'll do the plug-ins, for the smell. They'll shampoo the carpet, which will a lot of times just get the padding just soaking wet. Um, and then you look at, different, crawl spaces. A huge thing is not encapsulated. Like you just look under there and they have a piece of plastic, but you got to remember that air is also going into the home. So have special companies come out, you know, encapsulate, dehumidifiers. You really want to have that good air quality. Families that are struggling, families that are not even struggling, these are great tips because you don't want to get into a home and start having these issues, and then you're going to be one of the ones that wish you would have taken these extra precautions. And another huge misconception I want to say is just because the house is $1 million or 1.5 million, it doesn't make it any healthier.
Right,
So,
right, right. Now, let me see if there's any questions. Okay, there's a question.
okay.
Uh, Elaine said, "How much is the test for mycotoxins?" I think it's $380 for one mycotoxin air test, and some people, do more than one because like I did one in the room that I was pretty sure we had building material mold. Uh, Elaine asked, "Where are you in Georgia?"
I'm in the kind of metro Atlanta area, but I do travel for a lot of my clients within 2 hours of the metro Atlanta area. So I have a pretty good, range.
Um, Tammy, Tammy Horner. How
Yeah.
do you
Hey.
guide challengeable things? How do you guide changeable things from not changeable things? I'm not sure I understand. Do you understand that?
So
How do you
like
changeable
changeable
things
to non-change
from,
or changeable things to more a healthy change, like air filtration system, how to change it to a better one or
yeah, Tammy, if you're still watching, let us know. She had some other questions, but can you clarify on that question? How do you evaluate whether a home is good to move forward with, assuming work will need to be done to make it healthier?
yeah, that's a great question. Of course, it's always the buyer. I never make the suggestions. It's their money. They're getting the reports. And of course, we'll talk through what they find a lot of times, but it really just depends on what they're willing to do. A lot of families understand they're going to have to add healthy home features, right? The home might not already have the HVAC MERV system already in there, the dehumidifiers. We're closing on Friday for a family, and we're going in and they're adding, a few $1,000s worth of, or it's a good amount, but they're coming in, they're actually going to change out. It's a 10-year-old HVAC system. They're going to put two rims in there. They're adding all these healthy home features, three dehumidifiers for three levels, and they're just they're adding it. There's like a little crawl space down in the basement. We're going to add a special door down there, put a special dehumidifier down there. They're doing some air scrubbers, so they're putting in some protocols for the health of their family. So it depends. How much can I negotiate off? This family, I got 70,000 off the price of the house, which helped them put together what they needed to move forward. So I would just say, do the best you can with getting the buyers all the information they need. Having that special HVAC company come out, have that environmental company come out with a home inspector, a roof, just give them the tools that they need to make the decision on what they need to do to move forward.
So Tammy said when you find a home that has issues, where do you draw the line?
I think it depends on like what the issue is. Is it, has there been water, like a lot of families that are sick will say for them, their red line is, a past water leak that was not remediated properly. They
Right.
can't, they can't give us who the name of it was. It was, Joe Jam down the road that did it, and what was the water intrusion or what kind of waterproofing was put up, maybe in a basement or crawl space. I think it really depends on the family, their sensitivities, and what are they willing to do. And you'll be surprised if the house is in the school district they want, and maybe there hasn't been a past water. Maybe they're just going to invest thousands of dollars on clean air because they've done moisture testing. They've done everything that they possibly could to make sure there was no past leaks. But nobody's guaranteed that tomorrow there can't be a leak. You just
Right,
never
right,
know. So,
right. No, good question. And Tammy says that was, really, really helpful.
okay, good. Okay. And yeah, anything I've I do like 4 or 5 a month closings, and 98% of my clients are all environmental families. They've all struggled, or they maybe haven't gotten there yet, and they're hiring me to prevent, let's get in there. And I've got a lot of families that's never had a problem, but they don't want a problem.
Right. And I wish that would be the ideal, right? To have
Yeah.
people doing this preventatively, but a lot of us learn the hard way because we didn't know or because we dealt with water damage or some toxic issue ourselves. You had
Yeah.
mentioned your healthy home realty listing. Is that something I can link to the Facebook thing or
Okay, so I like, you mean like a that healthy home that I just did? Or oh no, the holistic real estate
the holistic real
network
estate
group.
network you had? Yeah.
I can definitely send you the group's name. It's only for realtors, and they
Oh,
have to
gotcha.
be vetted by me because I have 20 requests right now for regular, agents that want to get in, but I want this to be a specialty because I don't want to send a referral to someone that doesn't understand, that is mold literate or educated or environmental, so that's the hard thing is, is that.
I didn't know if you had a directory that was like there was a link to
Yeah.
this directory of realtors, but you're saying no, people should reach out to you
Yes, reach
if they're
out to
looking.
me. They can, yes,
And
they can reach out to me. They can email me. If you go to my website, atlantaholisticrealtor.com, you can see, I have Healthy Home Media and Healthy Home magazines on there. Take advantage of the free wellness magazines. It gives you so many tips about your home. You get a free monthly wellness real estate, newsletter. So, and then if you go to my blog section, you can hear some of the past podcasts that I did with Change the Air Foundation, Michael Rubino, Never Been Sicker. And so those will all be put on there. And just email me. Email me where you're located. Let me work on this. Let me try to find you somebody that I can, give a call to and find out like what level of comfort do they have working with an environmentally sensitive family.
yeah, I love that. I love that. I think all of us in this space, right? We're heartfelt. We want to see people be well, get well, you know,
Right.
great information. Great information.
Yeah.
I will put your contact information,
Yeah.
under the video once we get off, and write a little summary up. Any last questions that anybody listening has? I'm looking at my phone, seeing what questions are coming in. Any
Yeah.
last thoughts, Tori, before we have to get off that you want to share?
Yeah, I would say really look at the wellness of the home, really look at it, look at the grading of the home, look at the smell of the home, but try not to. I know it's easier said than done because I work with families all the time that are struggling, but try not to be stressed about it and have a really good communication with your realtor. Let them know. Don't be afraid to say, look, we're an environmentally sensitive family, and I'm going to have some special needs and requests that you might not have working with another client. Go ahead and have that conversation before you get too deep into it, because you want to make sure you've got a good fit for that agent, because maybe that agent, is a newer agent, or maybe that agent doesn't have time for, seeing maybe expect 10, 15, 20 homes and really having a good team in place. So just make sure that that agent knows, what the struggle are, but don't stress about it. There is a home out there for you. You will find it, and it sometimes takes a little bit longer, but it's worth stepping back, take your time, and I don't care what market it is, you never give up your inspections. I don't care how wild, wild west it is. So many, that's just such a risky thing. Get your inspections. That's your right. That's your right.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And one thing I'd like to close on that I never thought about in a home, but EMFs, I mean,
Yeah.
we hardwired our home. It was on my wish list, right?
Yeah.
On a list of things I wanted to do. Cost me about 200 bucks, really cheap, great, inexpensive electrician, hardwired our whole house.
Yeah.
And my sleep like doubled. And I
Yeah.
was a little shocked. I mean, I was unplugging my Wi-Fi every night. And that was just right, a very inexpensive thing to do,
Yeah.
um, to make the environment healthier.
I love what you said. And there's so many, like we have to do a 2.0, because we hadn't even touched on so many other things, like, you can do the little dirty electricity filters, and there's just so much. We'll have to tap in and do another, and then maybe we'll get a bunch of questions together that people might, after they watch it, and can get with us, and we can kind of touch on maybe some special topics out there, because I know I'm really seeing that wellness real estate is such a hot topic right now. I'm getting requests all the time to talk about it, or, have conversations.
I will put it out. I have two email lists, a professional
Great.
email list and a patient email list, and maybe do a little quiz like,
Yeah,
hey, which of these topics would you like to hear more about?
love it.
Um,
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
that would be fun.
Yeah. Thank you
Well,
guys so much. I mean, this is always a joy talking about healthy homes and to help families, no matter where your journey is. We're all either starting out or we're in the thick of it. It can help anybody, no matter what stage you're in, but just having conversations, reaching out, and trying to find your people, find your people. So,
I love that. And we do, we spend so much time in our home,
mhm.
so much time in our home that it's such an important place to look at the health of the air, the water,
Oh,
the electricity, like all of those pieces as people have the bandwidth.
yeah,
I never want to overwhelm people. We have to
right,
pick and choose where we prioritize our finances,
right.
and what's important to us. But we do spend so much time in our house. So it is a very important place to look at the health, you know, of the home that we're in.
That's right.
So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So happy to be here, and look forward to the next one.
Yeah, we'll do a next one, and I will. If you guys have an interest in the chat on certain topics that we can do a deeper dive in, you mentioned dirty electricity, we mentioned EMFs, we mentioned water damage,
Yeah.
um,
We can
we
talk about,
mentioned
maybe
HVAC.
products, we can, like,
I
Green
missed,
Guard.
say that again.
We
Just
can do like Green Guard. We can talk about, like, different VOCs, more of a non-toxic. If maybe you're in a home and you're not just looking to buy, and you're thinking, hey, I want to change something out. to make it a lower tax home, we can have conversations about that, because a lot of people with floor, we talk about flooring in basements with LVPs. We can get into a whole can of worms on that. We can get into the thick of whatever anybody wants to talk about because there's a lot to our homes can either help heal us or like you said, it can, affect us. So there's so many conversations to have and to how to handle moisture and everything.
So guys, put in the chat, what might interest you, if there are things that interest you, if you're watching the replay or if you're watching live. But thank you so much, Tori, for taking some time out of your busy day in Georgia. And I will give you guys information to reach out to Tori if she can help answer some questions or connect you to a holistic, healthy realtor in the state that you're in. But I think it was a great conversation for us to have, and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Heather.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.